Go. So
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're not ever planning to like make any money off of this, right?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay,
think
good.
So.
Okay, good. Oh wait. Oh, hold on. I gotta ask a lot of questions before I say something like this. But wait, you're like putting your real name on this, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really.
Are you gonna show it to employers?
Probably yes. Why?
Oh, I see.
All right. On that cheery note, welcome to the Broken Tablets podcast, folks. This is episode 2 of part 2 rather, of our generals episodes, finishing things out. So if you missed the last one, for those actually, before we get into anything, I just want to say thank you so much to all the people who have listened and have commented and have subscribed to our podcast abode. I'm very grateful for your help and for your support, and we are all very excited to keep moving on making these goofy little podcasts.
What are you guys drinking? I mean, I know we said it before, but let's reiterate.
Oh yeah, let's hash it out. Yeah, Eric, why don't you kick us off?
All right, I'm starting with a I wouldn't say a Jack and Coke. It's a rum and Coke. Sorry, it's Jonah's Curse is the black spice rum. It's pretty good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Liam?
I'm drinking what's called Envy from my favorite cider guys, the Far From the Tree Cider Company. Here are the actual ingredients that are in this.
Okay.
Apple, blueberry, strawberry, purple carrot, habanero, licorice root, orange peel, lemongrass, cinnamon. I love these people.
Wow, that actually all sounds very good.
It does.
It's kind of delicious. It's got that, like, at the end, you get the habanero for sure, and the cinnamon, because they're aromatic, and you get them in like the back of your throat, a little burn, a little sweet aroma coming out of your mouth.
Nice, man.
Right?
I am drinking a port. That's my dad's personal favorite. It's really what I have in the house at the moment, and it's very, very smooth. It's when you drink it, you get hints of it's like a very mellow, smoky raisin, and a hint of licorice at the end. It's a very nice, calming aperitif. It's really, really something.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, I
Garrett, this cider company is in Salem. Now that you are in this state, and now that the three of us are all in this state, at some point, 2 or 3 of us could go there to their tasting room and buy some stuff.
By the way, which cider company is this?
This is Far From the Tree.
I love Far From the Tree.
They're incredible.
Also, their cidery, it's dog friendly. Just heads up,
dude,
so
awesome.
People bring their dogs and they all chill. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's open right now with dogs.
With COVID,
but yeah, another nice plug there for any alcohol companies looking to sponsor us.
Yeah, go on in. Also,
Far From the Tree, my favorite thing to drink these days.
Yeah,
what's that, Garrett?
Oh no, I was saying while that we're here, I know that if you've only watched the first episode, because that's the only episode that's up, we introduced Eric as a guest. And it turns out that, drum roll please, Liam and I we were so impressed with Eric that we brought him on. Now he is a full-on permanent member of the Broken Tablets podcast. He is one of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome, Eric, formally to the Broken Tablets podcast crew. It is literally just the 3 of us and nobody else. So we're really excited to have him on. And so for you folks, this is the dynamic. This is going to be the 3. Hilariously, though, Liam and I actually have not introduced what we do because Liam and I were planning on recording another episode, but then we liked the one with Eric. So actually, the people at home, if you've watched the last episode, you don't know what Eric and I, or what Liam and I do. So Liam, I'm thinking we actually should give the nice folks some context as to who's actually telling them these things. Yeah,
sure. So I feel kind of like Malenkov from the Soviet Union. I just feel like that guy who ended up like in the number 2 spot somehow, and he just purely by having the right friends, and I'm just kind of sitting around, and then Eric comes along and he's like, you know, Joseph Stalin, and I'm like, well shit, like I'm just glad to be here. Like let this guy should be in charge. But like,
I've never been compared to Joseph Stalin before. That's
there's
a first
time for everything.
Yeah,
okay.
that's quite the.
Wait,
quite the
Garrett,
analogy.
did you ask a question? Oh yeah, because I was.
Introduce yourself, Dylan.
Sorry, I was busy googling who Jeffrey Tambor played in The Death of Stalin.
Oh my god! Well, we're never gonna get started. Okay.
No,
you're good. You're good. No, it's good. This is.
I am a soon-to-be graduate student in economics, and I have a love for history, but I wouldn't really call myself a historian because I feel like that's a term worth gatekeeping. As far as economists go, I could call myself an economist because that term makes no sense to gatekeep. You know, there are chief economists that have freaking engineering degrees. Like, it doesn't matter. Just somebody who cares and studies the economy. My knowledge of history kind of tends towards ancient history, the Greeks, the Romans, you know, in the times where they actually mattered. A little bit of Indian history and Middle Eastern history, pre-Islamic as well. But that's the modern era kind of does not interest me too much. I know the teensy bit about like early medieval British history, but that's just kind of as a tangent to having studied a little bit of common law. Garrett?
Oh, sweet. Well, awesome. My name is Garrett. I am a licensed history teacher, grades 5 through 12. I'm currently between jobs because I moved from California back to Massachusetts. I was born and raised in California, came all the way back because I don't like being hot. I know that's a big point of contention for a lot of people. They're
well,
like, why would you
tough
move back?
shit, Garrett, because you're pretty hot.
Oh, yeah, this guy. This guy's so there's that. I have a master's degrees in education. I have a undergrad in history and a undeclared minor in political science. I don't know if I told you this, Liam, but I actually qualified for a minor.
Did you take it?
But I didn't
is it on
take
your
it
diploma?
because I didn't realize I had done it.
You know, that's funny because I received a minor in something that I applied for but never reached the requirements for. I just gave up and thought it wasn't worth it, but they gave it to me anyway. So I also have a minor.
Funny. No, see, like the thing is that you probably got your minor in something like the way they consider to be useful. So they were just like, oh no, that'll look good if you do it. And then like for me, they're like, oh, forget it, that's political science. Nobody cares if you have a minor in political science. But yeah, so that's kind of my education. And then I have wanted to be a history teacher since I was in 7th grade, and I've been working toward it since then. My fields of not necessarily expertise, but I guess where my knowledge base is. Expertise implies that I am an actual expert. I'm not. I'm just a very passionate nerd, and is very much in the Enlightenment. So really anything from like 1650 onward, I'm pretty in there, so to speak. American history is a huge plus. I love American history. I am very much the stereotypical historian that way. New fascination with like antiquity, and Liam got me on that kick. I've been watching a lot of
hell yeah.
I've been watching and reading a lot more of antiquity stuff. Some of which may come up later, who knows? But I've also have a love for English history, everything from medieval history to early modern to postmodern. I mean, it's very, very. I do enjoy European history quite a lot. So those are really where I'm.
I was just thinking about this. I like maybe it helps for like a little one sentence like throwaway. So like we're talking about armies and commanders today.
Yes.
I think it may behoove us to. I would say like the most interesting person in an army to me, pre-modern era. You know, I'm talking about Caesar to the medieval era, or
Okay,
actually
of
Caesar
course.
through to like the Civil War. The most interesting guy in the military for me is the quartermaster. I think he's the coolest guy.
Yeah. That's a very fair.
I would guess, Garrett, that you would say, the tactician, like the commander, is the most interesting guy.
is that so here's the thing with my take on that. Also, yeah, I'm also very into military history, just so people at home know. The thing is that yes, the quartermaster is, and I think you're right, they are very much the unsung heroes. I actually have a quartermaster. Did I talk about a quartermaster already?
What do you mean you have a? Oh no, you did actually. Yeah.
I gave him. He's my personal favorite general. Yeah, that was last episode. I was like, I have a quartermaster on here. But the thing is that like the further back you go, a lot of what the quartermaster does is actually lobbed in to like the main general part. So Julius Caesar was really more or less his own quartermaster.
Yeah, and he had like slaves for that.
Well, okay, not really, but I mean, he had. I mean, that's what his like the I don't. There's a great YouTube video if you've never seen it. It's History Civilis. Have you watched it?
Historia Civilis. Yeah. I've heard of it.
He has a great episode on like how the Roman legion was structured. And he really breaks down like how it is both like a top down and bottom up system, where effectively you had these positions where you had like these think of them today as like middle management, where they would coordinate all of these different things and effectively make the army function independent of whoever was in charge, which is just incredible. And it's that kind of so that's why there wasn't like the position of like a quartermaster. Like I guess the unsung hero quartermaster is like the centurions of the Roman legion and stuff like that, because they're the ones that are making it work and saying we need to do this and move this here and all that stuff.
Yeah, I do know that the Romans did have kind of an extraordinary ability to, they did have supply lines, and that was important, especially in the imperial era.
Yeah.
From my reading, it seems like their logistics really didn't evolve until the Second Punic War, when Hannibal really kind of forced that on them, forced like very advanced logistics for the time. But they did have a remarkable ability wherever they were. Supply lines or not, to raise and keep armies supplied, mostly by requisitioning and plunder.
Yeah.
But they also, they'd set up, little towns like London and like Paris, right? These little towns and encampments, and they would have their soldiers plow the fields and set up like semi-permanent camps.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, sorry, we've come off on a tangent. We should ask our first question, unless we should once again introduce Eric.
Oh no, no, Eric, forget it. No, we don't have to introduce you. No. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself again?
No, I think I said it all in the first one. Let's move on to some questions.
Yeah. Well, also, just so you know, I'll probably end up cutting this part out of it. So hang on, I'm gonna write down. I don't have. Oh, I do have.
1733.
Yeah, 1738. Yeah. I'm like, hey, what's up? Hello. Yeah, you think I forgot about that? I did not. So 1735. Let's do. I just need to keep a timestamp here so I know. But my timestamps did not work last time, sadly enough. 1735. There was the cut. So the I was gonna say something that was why I cut everybody off. So yeah, we're just gonna go into the questions and and whatnot and yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna do. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a meet the hosts video where I'm just gonna cut together all the intros we have now and put them into one thing. So
sounds good.
That's what we'll do, and then we'll go forward. Okay, so now that we said that, and I will add this is 1830. Okay, so all right, boys, let's get into the show. So let's start with with a fun casual question. So for those of you who are at home, want a refresher on how we do these top tens kind of thing, is that we have casual questions and then we have serious questions. So the casual questions are things where we're not going to actually vote on them or come to a definitive answer on it. They're just kind of like, hey, we think these are cool, and then we go into that, and then
we're also not counting the words towards any sort of tally. So if you want to say, the greatest ladies' man is Genghis Khan because that's a terrible joke,
right?
And you also want to put like best cavalryman, you can also put Genghis Khan again, and you wouldn't be penalized.
Right, exactly right. You won't be penalized if you repeat people. And then we have serious questions where we will actually like really sit down, talk about the pros and cons of them in that category, and then we come to our own determination. And then we'll do it with rank order voting, Liam's favorite form of voting, which is actually ingenious.
Yes.
I stand by it. And
very unfortunately, number 2 just failed actually this past election.
Are you serious?
Season. Yeah, we do not get ranked choice voting in the state of Massachusetts this year.
That's so disappointing.
Yeah.
Wow. Hopefully it comes back on, because that needs to. That's seriously that's a big deal. All right. So let's jump into it before any more delays. So let's kick off with the first extra casual question that we created. Give me your boys' general with the best one-liner. So, Eric, why don't you take us away with this one to kick it off?
Yeah. Okay. So
you might have the one I have, actually.
So I'm not sure. I actually kind of base this off. Side note to all the listeners, we originally had a different question for general who died the most ironically, and I think by what this general said, I'm going to use him as having the best one-liner. It's not really a one-liner, but it's a great quote, and I thought it kind of worked well with this one.
Okay.
And that would be John Sedgwick. He was a Union general. He graduated West Point in 1837, and as soon as he graduated, he was immediately commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army and was sent to clear the Seminole Indians in Florida. He fought in the Mexican War under Zachary Taylor. He fought his way up the ranks, basically.
Okay.
So when the Civil War began in 1861, he received orders to report to D.C. and serve as the Assistant Inspector General of the Military Department. And after a few months, he was promoted to a Brigadier General of Volunteers. This guy was actually really well liked. He was respected by all. He was actually given the nickname Uncle John by his men because they thought they could go to him with any problems they had or anything like that. The thing about this guy, he'd get hurt a lot during battles. At the 7 Days battle, he was injured in both the arm and leg. He was injured at Glendale while pushing back Robert E. Lee. At the Battle of Antietam, he was shot 3 times, one in the wrist, one in the leg, one in the shoulder, but he was back after 90 days. This guy just would not go down.
He's not going down.
No, he would not. So he was then on May 9th, 1864 at the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse.
Yep.
There were Confederate sharpshooters who were firing shots at the Union from about 1,000 meters away. And as the two of you know, back then, you're probably not hitting anyone.
No.
That's really far.
That's really far.
Yeah, no matter how good a sharpshooter you are, it's just very unlikely. But still, his men could hear, the bullets whizzing by, so they were all ducking from the shots. And at this point, Sedgwick stated, men dodging this way for single bullets? What will you do when they open fire along the whole line? That's not the ironic part, though.
Oh.
What the most ironic part is, his men are still freaking out. And then he says, men, they couldn't hit an elephant at this distance. And just moments later, he was shot directly in the left eye and killed instantly. So,
wow.
So I have to say, it's not quite a one-liner, but I just thought it worked so perfectly that I had to bring it up in this discussion.
That's brilliant. No, I've never heard of that guy.
Yep.
The thing is that when Liam and I were talking about when we initially made that first round of questions,
mm-hmm.
I was like, if I had an example like that, I'm like, that would be perfect. But I don't know. We looked over the internet. I'm like, I don't know. I can't find anybody. I cracked open books. It wasn't there. But that's incredible. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was. They said within 5 minutes of him saying that he was gone.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Especially again, 1,000 meters away. There's no like the chances of someone getting shot. Period. It's just it being him from that far. After saying that, it was brilliant. I love that.
Yeah. So just to give some people at home some context for how incredibly unlucky this guy was, is that there was a sharpshooter regiment that the Union had, and they had to shoot a literal quarter from, I believe it was like 100 or 150 yards away, and they were using a Spencer, not Spencer, it was, I can't remember what gun it was, but I think it was a Spencer. It was the first breech-loading rifle, and that's why they were able to do it.
Yep.
And you had to shoot a quarter from that. And again, there only were like 50 of these guys, but they were like the elite sharpshooters. Yep. So to be able to just be struck by a bullet that came from literally like 1,000 meters, the chances of that happening are so astronomically low that like the universe just had to like just slap you across the face.
Yep.
You know, like that's just nuts. Eric, I love that. Good. Liam, what do you have?
All right, so not to spoil yours, because I hope I don't spoil yours. No, but I was originally thinking Leonidas for this, you know.
Oh,
the well-known,
yes, of course. Yes.
You know, because the Spartans in general have such great one-liners.
They really do.
So I'm sure that you might be familiar with the famous Philip of Macedon. The quote that Philip of Macedon said.
Yes. I know exactly what you're doing. I love it.
You know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly where you're going.
He basically said, like, if my army lands on your shores, we will raze your city, we will destroy everything, and we will leave you with nothing. And unfortunately, it wasn't a commander, so I can't include it here. It was the elders. It was the elders of Sparta. They weren't command, or they probably were, but they're unnamed, so I didn't feel right saying it. But they responded, "If," which that's got to be the greatest one-liner in all of history.
Oh yeah, I know. It's absolutely brilliant.
The greatest one-word answer in all of history, probably. But that's not what I chose, because I couldn't, in good conscience, consider that a commander in quotes. They probably sat through like a committee and decided what to say.
Yeah.
So mine comes from the little-known Brennus of the Senonii. The Senonii, I guess you could properly say, which were a Gallic tribe.
Okay.
And I believe he was actually the first barbarian to ever sack Rome. So he was on the hill with his victorious army, and he was demanding tribute from the Romans. And so he brought in this big scale, and he said, Romans, I'm putting the weight on the scale. This is how much gold you have to give me. And they came by and bucket by bucket, perhaps apocryphally it said, poured gold into the cup of this scale. Mm-hmm. And it seemed that it wasn't moving quite as much as it should, given the weight on the other end. And so some prominent Romans complained that Brennus was cheating them. He was acting unfairly with this scale. And Brennus took his sword and, with his arm, I believe, used his sword to tilt the scale further on the side of his weights, and said, "Vae victis," which means "woe to the conquered."
Wow, that's excellent.
Right.
That's great. Wow, that's gotta sit in nice. Man, just like I honestly love like as the further back you go in history, just like the more perpetually Chad everyone gets.
We're gonna talk about some real Chads.
Yeah, I know we are too. It's great. Okay, so I guess I should go next. Okay, this one is a little bit more modern, but I know Eric for sure knows this one. And Liam, you probably know this. No, you definitely know this one too. So this is during the Battle of Bastogne. Okay, this is General Anthony Clement
Yeah.
See, Eric's already laughing. He already knows. This is
Oh, I
without
think
a
I've heard
doubt
of
my
this one.
favorite one-liner said by an American probably ever. So in Bastogne, they're surrounded, right? The General Anthony Clement was in charge of the 101st Airborne. And they're being shelled like crazy. They're like completely surrounded. They've been surrounded for quite a while, and the Germans ask for the very honorable surrender of the Americans in Bastogne. And upon seeing this for the first time, Anthony Clement, who was notoriously like straight up and down, the man didn't drink, he didn't swear, he didn't do anything. He just looked at his subordinates and just said, nuts. And they all laughed. And so then they all had a little chuckle, and they're like, okay, well, how do we respond to the Germans? And one of his subordinates looked to him and said, just say that. Say, nuts. And so they did. They sent it back to them, and the Germans thought it was a code. And so they're sitting there, like they look at it for like a couple hours, and they're like, we don't know what this means. And so they contacted one of the American subordinates, and he said, and the Germans, like, hey, what the hell does this mean? And the American subordinate replied, in plain English, go to hell. and it's just something that's just so pleasantly World War II Marine, like a Special Forces American reply that it makes me laugh every single time. Every single time I hear it. But it's a good one.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, that's just a lot of fun. So yeah. Sorry. So for the next one, so that was casual question numero uno.
Yeah.
Casual question numero dos. Let's do.
Can we do backstory?
Yeah, let's
Sure.
do backstory. Let's do backstory.
All right,
So,
because
Liam,
I
you seem pretty
really,
eager with this one. Let's do.
I really want to do this one. All right,
Sounds like you got a good one to start.
I sure do. So let me think about how to introduce this. I am going to quote at length from Edward Gibbon, because of course I am.
Of course you are. All right.
Okay. The Emperor Severus, returning from an eastern expedition, halted in Thrace to celebrate with military games the birthday of his younger son, Geta. The country flocked in crowds to behold their sovereign, and a young barbarian of gigantic stature earnestly solicited in his rude dialect that he might be allowed to contend for the prize of wrestling, as the pride of discipline would have been disgraced in the overthrow of a Roman soldier by a Thracian peasant. He was matched with the stoutest followers of the camp, 16 of whom he successfully laid on the ground. His victory was rewarded by trifling gifts, and a permission to enlist in the troops. The next day, the happy barbarian was distinguished above a crowd of recruits, dancing and exulting after the fashion of his country. As soon as he perceived that he had attracted the emperor's notice, he instantly ran up to his horse and followed him on foot, without the least appearance of fatigue, in a long and rapid career. "Thracian," said Severus with astonishment, "art thou disposed to wrestle after thy race?" "Most willingly, sir," replied the unwearied youth. Almost in a breath, overthrew 7 of the strongest soldiers in the army. A gold collar was the prize of his matchless vigor and activity, and he was immediately appointed to serve in the house guards who always attended the person of the sovereign. So, long story short, he actually becomes something of a favorite of the emperor within the army, and distinguished himself later in combat. And upon the death of Severus, I believe, or a couple deaths afterwards, he self-proclaimed himself emperor. And his name is Maximinus, in parentheses, Gigachad Thrax. So I want you to... Okay, I've added that part.
Not gonna lie, I did in fact give him that title of Gigachad.
So he was described as being like 8'6", and I want you to Google right now, Maximinus. So Maximinus Thrax. I want you to Google image search him right now and tell me that isn't a legitimate Gigachad. Look at that chin.
Liam. I honestly, I'm looking at the colored version, and he's looking a little. He's looking. Honestly, he's. You know what? I'm looking at. All right, this other one, he actually looks like a handsome man.
He's a Giga Chad, and I'm gonna send you the picture that you're gonna put on screen for this. I'm gonna test your editing abilities with this because it's so important that you know how badass he was. So he was actually.
People.
I think he was the first emperor never to set foot in Rome before his death. His revolt or emperorship didn't really last very long, but he was a distinguished warrior, and I think it's just so hilarious that he kind of started by being like a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
Like this pro. Imagine the freaking Randy Savage, like just running for president.
The cream of the crop, brother.
What's the Idiocracy, the movie where Terry Crews is a pro wrestler who becomes president?
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yes.
Dude, I don't know.
Exactly.
Right?
It's basically exactly that. Just this Giga Chad wrestler. This undefeated 8-foot-tall giant man says, "I am now emperor," and his name is Thrax. Like, I think that's the funniest possible backstory I've ever heard for a Roman. Actually, okay, that's not actually the funniest backstory of a Roman emperor. There was one guy, I think, a little bit before or a little bit after this. Actually, I want to say a little bit before. Yeah. Because I think he preceded Severus, who just bought it.
He just bought the
He
throne?
just the Praetorian Guard, as they are wont to do, just stabbed the emperor and said, we're actually, we're so venal and we're not even gonna hide it that we're just gonna auction the emperorship off to the highest bidder, and someone bought it.
Well, there you go.
Also, Garrett, since you said you weren't sure about the movie Idiocracy, and Liam, you do know, just so you know, Garrett, Terry Crews in that movie played a pro wrestler turned president. His name was President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho. He was known as a 5-time Ultimate SmackDown champion, porn superstar, and president of the United States.
Wow, dude. Honestly, Terry Crews for president with that name would be fantastic.
Yes,
I'd vote for it. That's awesome. All right, Eric, take it away. What's your backstory?
Cool. So I'm gonna use someone I actually used last episode again on a casual. Hey, it's casual.
I know. I'm just naming for no reason. Go for it.
Yeah, I know. And that's gonna be Alexander the Great, just because his backstory is kind of like Game of Thrones to a degree.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean. So,
if you believe the rumors.
If the
yes.
rumors can be cool.
Yes. But, when he was growing up, ages 13 through 16, he was tutored by Aristotle, which is just kind of interesting and cool. Like, that, I don't know, as a 13-year-old to be taught by Aristotle, I think that's pretty awesome. But that wasn't the part that made his backstory so crazy to me. It was more his mom was kind of insane.
Yeah.
I mean, she always put a lot of pressure on him. Whenever she saw him, she would tell him, "Hey, you're gonna conquer the entire world," which, I mean, at the time he basically did, but still. And she would tell people, including Alexander himself, that she was impregnated by Zeus and that Alexander was actually the son of Zeus. So obviously, no pressure there from your mom. Like, that's a helicopter mom if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah.
But then,
I wonder what Philip thought of that shit.
Well, not only that, so King Philip, as you were saying, later on in life had a new wife, and his wife had a daughter. And when King Philip died and Alexander was about to assume power, Alexander's mom, the former king's ex-wife, burned the king's wife and and their daughter alive.
Oh my god.
And I don't know, because it wasn't like Alexander was super old when he became, when he assumed power. Just all of this happening at such a young age. I don't know. To me, it just sounded very Game of Thrones-y.
I mean, to add Game of Throniness,
Mm-hmm.
there are persistent rumors that Alexander's mother engaged in a sexual relationship with him.
Also, yes, true. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
so,
also.
Well, all I'm seeing right now is like once you made the Game of Thrones connection, I'm like, wow, it's just like Cersei Lannister, just everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. Okay, so this one for my general with the craziest backstory. This one I hope will give you a giggle. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's called Ivalo the Cabbage. Do you know of Ivalo?
Ivalo the what?
The Cabbage.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah. Liam, you chuckled like you knew what this guy is.
No, all I could think of is the image of Diocletian retiring to his cabbage fields after his emperorship.
No. Okay, it's better than that. So Ivalo the Cabbage was a peasant turned emperor in the late 1200s in I believe it was Bulgaria. Okay.
Bulgaria having an empire. Choose one.
Okay. So dude, this guy actually kind of nuts. All right. So he's born as a peasant. Okay, and so he's going through all of these things, and he believes that he is seeing visions from God. Okay. So
always a good start.
So he's seeing these religious visions, and he's like, God is speaking to me. He does, he tells all the local serfs and townspeople, and they're like, hey, this guy's talking to God. And then the Mongols start to raid, because of course they do. Now, the Mongols have been raging through Bulgaria for the longest time because, that's
what time was this? Do you have a date?
The date I have is he was alive in like the mid to late 1200s in Bulgaria. And so he, I literally had to write this down because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to keep this all straight. So he, so the Mongols attack. Okay. So Ivalo the Cabbage, the Chad that he is, he says he assembles the peasants and he beats the Mongols. All right.
What?
So he does what the Bulgarian aristocracy have been trying to do for like 70 years, and they can't do it. And so he's like, I am and so the citizens are like, this guy should be czar. He should be in charge of Bulgaria. And yeah, it turns out Bulgaria had a czar. I didn't know that either. And so he's going through, and he's just like, yes, I hear the people, I will be czar. So the czar, Constantine, is like, I don't like this at all. So then he challenges the peasant army to battle. And he beats the czar's army with his peasants. And so, but here's the killer thing too. So the czar is on a golden chariot. He's literally being pulled by a chariot. Ivalo, absolute Chad, runs up to the chariot and cuts off his head. And he takes it and he just holds his head up and he goes, I am czar. And everyone's just like, I can't believe it. And so then, after Constantine is killed, the nobles flee. And then he lays siege to the capital. And the widow of Constantine, the Empress Maria, is like, hey, okay, hold up. This guy he claims that he talks to God. He's leading a lot of angry peasants, and I have a son. So she offers her hand in marriage to him to make sure that her son will still maintain his claim to the throne. And then Ivalo is just like, yeah, I will. I was like, yeah, that's right. I'm gonna marry this woman. He marries her, and the nobles, because they hate him, pin him with. They call him the Cabbage to the reference to the fact that he's a peasant. But oh, dude, Liam, it gets better. So the thing is that while the Byzantines are like, hey, yo, friend, I see that the Bulgarian czarship is vacant. So they're like, we're going to get our guy to go there, because apparently an exiled member of the Bulgarian royal family was with the Byzantines. So the Byzantine emperor is like, hey fam, you're going to be the next Bulgarian emperor. You're going to be Constantine III. Go. So then Constantine III gets a Byzantine army and invades Bulgaria. Again, Giga Chad Ivolu is like, I'm gonna cabbage you upside the head, boy. You don't know what you're doing. He goes down. He beats the Byzantines without batting an eye. And he's like, that's right, I am ultimate cabbage. Can't be stopped. The Mongols start invading again, so he's up back north. This time he doesn't get so lucky in that the Mongols, the Mongols trap him in a fortress up north. So then the nobles that are supposedly quote unquote helping the cabbage run back to the capital, and I'm like, oh no, Ivolo the cabbage has died. So because they've died, the nobles brought the cuck Constantine out of exile and put him on the throne. Meanwhile, Ivolo, being again Chad that he is, beats back the Mongols and charges back to the capital. Is like, I'm gonna reassert myself on the throne, and he fights, and then he fights out with the peasant army. He beats them kind of, but then after he beats the army, the nobles inside the capital are like, we're not gonna let you in. This time though, the peasants who are following God King the Cabbage are like, hey man, like I want to go back to my farms and stuff. And the cabbage like, but dude, I speak to God. And they're like, tough shit, man. I got to go back to my farm. So he loses his army, not because he ever lost a battle to the Mongols or the Byzantines or the frickin' nobles. It's because they literally lost the will to fight because his soldiers had to go back and farm stuff. And so he ends up going back to the Mongols of all people. Because he was exiled effectively, because he's an emperor without a throne. And the Byzantines hear that he's with the Mongols, and then the Byzantine emperor is like, hey, I'll marry you to one of my bastard daughters if you kill this guy. And then the Mongols kill Ivolo, and that's how he dies. This is the craziest story I could find. And I'm like, I can't believe this man was real.
All right. I have one... I have one request,
okay,
and that is that you include the My Cabbages guy from Avatar: The Last Airbender with the eye glow meme effect.
I will. The entire time this is happening, I'll edit that in.
Please do. I will edit one perhaps and get it to you. That is quite literally the most incredible story I've ever heard.
Yeah, dude, I literally heard this story through a top 10 list that I watched just like a couple years ago, and I'm like, wait, the cabbage. Yeah, I gotta know about the cabbage. Because, dude, I was like, the whole time, and like, I looked this up because I'm like, there's no way this is real. And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh my god, it's totally real. This man like had like the craziest backstory that I could possibly think, and nobody knows who he is. And the thing is, Liam, all this craziness happened in a year.
What?
This was all in 1 year.
Wait. I mean, that's par for the course with history. But...
I know, but then I don't know. It's just nuts. It's just absolutely. I just think it's so funny. Yeah. Awesome, boys. Alrighty, so now we come to serious question number 1. Bum bum ba. So let's do. Gosh.
Can I pick one?
You know what, Eric? Yeah, you pick one.
I was gonna say I haven't picked one yet. I think I should try one for myself.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go best rebel general.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
All right, that's a good one, and yep. I'm so torn on this one. It's not even funny.
Okay, so who would like to start on this?
I think Garrett should start. He hasn't started yet.
To be fair, I did just talk for about like 20 minutes.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So we should have somebody else's voice just break it up.
Well, I just started, but I'll do it again because I don't have a lot to say about this guy. I think that he stands on his own based on his history. Mine is Simon Bolivar.
Oh yes. No, he's good.
I primarily chose him, like, a lot of his work was political, but also a lot of it was military. He had this amazing way of heading into a place in South America. He's revered all over South America for he was almost like a revolutionary for hire, but also like a pro bono revolutionary. He would just hop into some revolutionary struggle because he wanted all of, Gran Colombia to be independent. And he would raise these armies of peasants. He would go door to door at some points in his early career, and he would raise these peasant armies, which were woefully unequipped, and he would lose. And he he kept losing and getting exiled and losing and getting exiled and losing and getting exiled until finally it kind of worked. And it worked for him. And he did gain independence for all of the Spanish-speaking nations of South America. Not all of them, mostly kind of like the Gran Colombia region. I think not quite Chile and not quite Argentina. I think those were two separate revolutionary struggles, but truly a wonderful guy. A fascinating kind of genius of politics. He really knew how to get people on his side, and but kind of unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way he had hoped. He wanted like a unified South American Spanish-speaking empire of like Greater Venezuela. Didn't really work out. Bolivia was sort of a separate deal for him, but he kind of died thinking that he'd failed, and not failed in kind of pushing out the Spanish, but failed in creating the great nation that he thought he would in his youth. He really gave away everything he had early on to become a revolutionary. He grew up in, splendor and wealth in Venezuela, and he left it all behind and pretty much gave it all up to become this revolutionary. He was betrayed by friends. I don't know if he ever really grew a family of his own, but he now has a country named after him. Yeah. And he's known all around South America as El Libertador, the liberator.
Huh.
He's like a mythological character. And
so just a question, is he in the same vein as Washington is here?
Definitely. Even really more so, because he was like the visionary. There weren't a lot, as far as I'm aware of how should I say, like, well known. There wasn't like an intellectual vanguard, as far as I'm really aware, of revolutionary sentiment in South America, except for him and a couple other guys who ended up being his cronies.
Because I was thinking, it's the way that you're making it sound is that effectively he is like the Sons of Liberty, Continental Congress, and then the Continental Army all in one, is what it sounds.
To a degree, basically.
Obviously to a degree, but
yeah, he had a lot of help with his military conquests, but he did bring a lot of people in who otherwise had no interest in fighting.
Well, hey,
I don't know. I think he really deserves, as a rebel commander, just the ability to inspire. I think he deserves some kind of superlative there.
Nice. Well, that's excellent. Well, you know what? Honestly, you have me convinced. I'll say that much.
Definitely up there.
Yeah. All right, Eric, you're up.
All right, so
I think I know what you're gonna say. I'm like 90% sure.
I actually 100% doubt that.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, then surprise me.
Actually, before I start, can you give me a thought of who you think I'm going to say?
Robert E. Lee.
Okay, that's a good one. But no, actually, I'm going to discuss about... This person goes by 3 different names. They're all the same, but it's Queen Nanny, or Granny Nanny of the Jamaican Maroons.
Wow, okay, congratulations, you got me out of left field there.
Yeah, so Granny Nanny led a group of what was known as the Jamaican Maroons, or there's a bunch of different names for them, but basically they were, how do you put this, enslaved Africans who now lived in Jamaica, and she was able to help liberate a lot of them. So they all kind of followed her, and she built her own village. It was originally known as Nanny Town, and then it was later known as New Nanny Town down the road. But regardless, so she and these Maroons used to fight against the British in the 1720s through 1740s as they were trying to, kind of enslave a lot of people in Jamaica.
Sure.
And the way they did this was by guerrilla warfare, and So the British would try and get to this village. It was this nanny town was located in rugged territory. There was only one way in, and the path was so narrow that people had to go in one by one.
Oh, okay.
So they would just completely annihilate these soldiers who tried to come near them. And she would always, to heighten fear, she would never allow all her forces to kill everyone there. She'd leave like one or two to relay the story of the horror they just encountered back to their like generals. It got so bad that actually the British sued for peace and signed signed a treaty with them back on April 20th of 1740. This treaty also granted her 500 acres of land and to her and her followers, and that's kind of that land. Actually, that village of the 500 acres still stands today. It's called Moortown, also known as New Nannytown. It's really weird how that works. But so also the government of Jamaica declared Nanny one of their female national heroes, celebrating her success as a leader, military tactician, and strategist, and her image is now on the Jamaican $500 bill, which is known as a nanny.
Wow, that's cool as hell.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm not gonna lie,
That's
Eric.
not what I expected.
Right?
That's not what I expected. That's not what I expected at all. But you know what?
Mhm.
That's dude. Don't you just love history? There's like so many things that you would just never hear about.
Also, fun little fact: the Maroons attributed their mastery of the British to the successful use of supernatural powers by Nanny. So they literally thought she was like superhuman.
Oh, awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, it's one thing to not only single-handedly body the largest empire on top of it, but you have to be like, hey man, I'm doing this, I'm speaking to God. You know, like
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Feels
mine
good.
is, here's the thing, you guys both had like great out of the box answers. Mine is so completely expected and basic, but it's not for the reasons I think that I think you would first expect. So I have, for the best rebel general, I have who I thought Eric was going to pick. I had Robert E. Lee. Now, the reason why I had Robert E. Lee is actually twofold. First, militarily, he is without a doubt, tactically, one of the greatest, if not the greatest American generals we've ever had.
Definitely
The man, I mean, with the exception of Gettysburg, that's really the only time he really, like, seriously messes up. And I have my own thoughts on that. But by and large, tactically, the man never really lost the battle. He did lose in that he was effectively out attritioned, but he did not but he was fighting armies, 2, 3, 4 times his size and winning comfortably every time. He had the reputation of being the invincible Lee, right? So strictly general speaking, he's like that. But where I think he really comes to his own as the best rebel general is actually in how he surrenders. So Robert E. Lee, and as Eric actually just greatly illustrated, is that towards the end of the Civil War in April of 1865, Robert E. Lee had been facing a series of really dire straits. The siege of Petersburg had been going very poorly for him and his men, and he has to make a decision. He says, okay, do I either surrender my army as a whole, or do I effectively disband as an organized force and engage in guerrilla warfare, as Eric's rebels did? And he fights for a little while, and he fights this like long retreat until he comes to the point where he's like, look, I either go and do guerrilla warfare and plunge this country into probably decades of civil war more, or I surrender my forces and become and end this war now. And he chooses the latter. He chooses to say no to guerrilla warfare, and he signs obviously surrender at Appomattox, and once he loses, he really becomes the spokesman for reunification with the Union. After that point, he issues what's called he writes an open letter towards the latter half of of April, where he pretty much says he pleads his fellow Confederate officers and generals to really surrender. We've lost. Effectively the jig is up is what he wrote it as, and he made sure that really that to end the war. And then after the war was over, in Richmond, this is my favorite Lee story, is that he in Richmond, in St. Paul's Episcopal Church, which is the big church at the center of Richmond. This is where the likes of Jefferson Davis would go, the Confederate president. There was a black man that came from the top part of the church. He came down to receive communion, where traditionally all the whites did, and everyone in the church was like, "Oh my God, it's a black man sitting where the white man is supposed to be," and then one person steps up and takes communion next to him, and that was Robert E. Lee. So I think he's the best general. Yes, tactically, because he fought some great battles, and Fredericksburg is still to this day it's a masterpiece, even though that was Jackson, but Lee was there too. And just the whole Peninsula War was very well fought. But Lee really did lead in a way that really made sure that the bloodshed ended. And I think that is something that I don't think any other rebel general, he had that much power or that much moral sway over people. So that's why I picked him.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, now it comes to voting.
Answers.
Yeah.
So
now we have to vote because it is a serious question.
That was kind of tough.
These are tough. Seriously, you guys both had some really, really, really solid ones. So I know how I'm gonna vote. Do you guys need a minute or?
I
guess I sort of got it already.
Okay, so Liam, why don't you kick it off?
I think I'm gonna go with the Jamaican woman, because what a fascinating character.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. What a fascinating character. I never would have expected anything like that. Yeah.
So who do you vote next then?
Oh, right, ranked.
Yeah, right.
And then I think I'll take mine, which is Bolivar. And then yours, of course.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. What about yours, Mr. Eric?
Honestly, step by step, I'm in agreement with Liam. I just, with the Queen Nanny, it's just it's 1700s, a woman of power like that to me was just huge, and for everything she did, I don't know, I thought it was a cool story, but I didn't know too much about Simone Bolivar, and I actually really liked learning about that. As much as I love Robert E. Lee, I have to put Bolivar at 2.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the thing is that as soon as I heard the two of yours, I'm like, you guys are both. It was such sensational stories that I was like, I went for the easy option.
So yeah, as far as it's tough because as far as actual generals go, Robert E. Lee might have everyone beat because he actually had a lot of experience and he was actually a seasoned general and a good one actually. I can't really speak to Mama, but
Queen Nanny.
Bolivar was kind of he wasn't a brilliant commander. He was a good commander of men, but not a brilliant strategist or tactician.
Well, but I mean the thing is that yes, as a tactician, Robert E. Lee is without a doubt the best tactician out of all the three that we've talked about. But I think where your guys is, and I think this will surprise you with my vote, I'm actually putting Bolivar first. And the reason why I put Bolivar over Mama, and don't get me wrong, Nanny is a.
Oh, sorry, that's my bad. I said Mama.
Yeah, you did say Mama, and I was like, is that it? I wasn't quite sure, but no, Nanny is hands down. Like Eric, I want you to know this is gonna be. I will teach about Nanny in my history class.
Oh, please
I'm gonna be like, hey, 1740s. You want to know what happened, kids? It's like hey, if it's like everyone's scared if the trees speak Vietnamese, but if they speak Jamaican, you're in big trouble. Like that's the but the reason why I took Bolivar over Nanny is because Bolivar takes this kind of similar to Lee in this, except to a much bigger extent, in that Bolivar has this whole kind of ethos and reverence around him on a much larger scale. So
Right.
you have a country named after him. You have like everyone in not everyone, but a good majority of Latin American countries call him Liberator, right? That's that kind of thing. As a rebel general is so important. So that's why I put him first. Then I put Nanny, and then I put Lee. So what it's really between is Nanny and Bolivar. So I stick with Bolivar, but if it goes Nanny, I have no problem.
I think the way the rank order works, it has to go Nanny, right?
Yeah, I think it does have to go Nanny. All right, so
I'll
take
Nanny
that.
it is.
I'll take that.
So Nanny.
I can't believe it's a mama. How?
You did say mama, and as I said it, I'm like, this isn't right. but I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's just how it is. But yeah, that's a really cool story, Eric.
Yeah.
I really, really like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to research.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. How did you come upon that?
Honestly, I think Bhavana might have even found it.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then told me about it.
Something she would know.
Yeah, I don't think she knew. I think she looked it up, and then she like told me about her, and I kind of researched it. I'm like, oh yeah, actually this one's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't you just love just like finding like nuggets of history like that are just
Right?
like, wow, that's crazy. All right, so now we're back to casual questions.
Okay.
And we're going to dabble in. Actually, Liam, why don't you pick? You pick the next.
Okay, I actually will. Because I really liked this one. Let's go with some humor. Let's get the funniest.
Okay.
The funniest. And I interpreted this, I'm sure, a little bit differently than you, because I found it quite difficult to search my memory or even the internet for any generals I found.
This was the hardest one for me to find. I did kind of take a cop out with it.
So, Garrett, you should definitely start with this one.
Yeah.
Crap. All right. No, I only say crap because like I said, I could not find like really funny, like a general who was like absolutely consistently funny. So I had to go. So, and the thing that sucks is that like Liam already kind of touched on it, is that I went with a Spartan because I had to.
Nice.
So I'm sure everyone is familiar with Dionysus.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case we're not.
Just in case you're not. So during the Battle of Thermopylae, this is most famously known as the Battle of the 300. You had. Dionysus, who was a lieutenant of the Spartan king Leonidas, and he and the Persians go up to him, and he says, he says you bring good news for now. Oh no, that's what Dionysus says. Sorry, I messed up my quote because I didn't do it
it's
properly.
Cool. I didn't understand it anyway, so just go for it.
So the Persian ambassador like does a little parlay, right? Before the Spartans and the Persians beat the crap out of each other. And he says, Spartans, you are fools. You only have your 1,000 Greeks. Our arrows will block out the sun and murder you all. And Dionysus turns to him, tilts his head, and kind of laughs. And he just goes, you bring us good news. For now, we can fight in the shade. And it's just such like a Giga Chad moment. And it's just something where the Spartans were notoriously fun with their wits. Another really good one that I have is actually by the Queen Gorgo. This is actually Leonidas' wife, I think. I could be wrong on that though. And this was between the Athenian and the Spartan. And so the thing is that in the Spartan society, they were actually quite equal. They were very equally treated by and large, because the Spartan state valued women producing male heirs as paramount. And actually, in the Spartan culture, you only got your name on a tombstone for two reasons. One, you were a woman who died giving childbirth, and you were a man and you died on the battlefield. Those are the only two people that got their names on their tombstones. Everybody else just got a slab and said, here lies Spartan. So an Athenian asked a Spartan woman why is it that women why they were able to rule over men, and it was because, and she replied with, "We are the only ones who give birth to men." So pretty much saying that like our men are the real men, and we make them, and that's why we can have that's why we hold equal status, which is just such a ultimate kind of just up yours. Again, I think that's relatively funny. I got no laugh lines with this. This one was really hard for me. I could not find anything good. So I hope you guys have something better, because mine was not very good.
I think Garrett should go next.
You want me to? Sure.
Yeah.
So
Go for it.
mine is gonna actually be Winston Churchill.
Oh, why didn't I think of that? He's got so many good ones.
Yeah, I mean,
He does.
He was so smart, so witty, always had a quick response. I picked, I think, 3 quotes or lines that he did that I thought were pretty good examples. But one, he had stated once that a lady came up to me one day and said, "Sir, you're drunk." To which I replied, "I'm drunk today, madam, and tomorrow I shall be sober, but you will still be ugly."
Yeah. I wanted to make that my senior quote, and my mom wouldn't let me. I was so sad.
Another one, he always had a constant back and forth with Lady Astor.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most notable ones when Lady Astor said to Churchill, "If you were my husband, I'd poison your tea," to which he responded, "Madam, if you were my wife, I'd drink it." And then another good one, he was, I guess, in Parliament, and someone, I guess he fell asleep, and one of them said to him, "Mr. Churchill, must you fall asleep while I'm speaking?" And Churchill's response was, "No, it's purely voluntary."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just there's so many good funny quotes from him, so I had to throw him in there.
I don't. Why didn't I think of that? God, dumb. Okay, Liam, what you got?
Sorry for the microwave sounds. I'm heating up some rice.
Nice.
You're chilling, dude.
Yeah, I had sausage for breakfast, just like 12 finger-sized little sausages, and now I'm having rice for dinner.
I can respect that. I had kielbasa and eggs for breakfast today, dude.
That sounds good.
Honestly, one of my favorite things about being back in Massachusetts is that I have readily available kielbasa. That's not something that you find a lot in California.
Massachusetts does have a large Polish population.
They really do, right? And God bless them.
Okay, so the funniest general I kind of interpreted it differently, perhaps.
Okay.
So this is someone from Chinese history named Zhang Xun.
Okay.
That's and so his army at a certain point was being besieged, and they ran out of arrows.
Okay.
So in the dead of night, he ordered his men to beat the war drums, and then lower from the walls dummies, made of straw. And so they lowered down these dummies full of straw, and the enemy, thinking that this was them making a final break for it, they started firing arrows en masse into these dummies, and then he just pulled up the dummies and took out the arrows and started using them. And if that wasn't enough, in another battle after this one, he had already, of course, garnered this reputation. So he was attacking. He decided to attack an enemy camp, and he was like, "We've got to go for the general on this one. We've got to go for the general." So, in the dead of night, once again, he had his men beat the war drums, and he had his slingers and his archers attack the enemy camp at night by firing just sticks and weeds. And so it took them not so long to figure out that they were being attacked by sticks and weeds. So clearly the enemy didn't have any arrows, just once again. So they sent an envoy, and the envoys, I assume, had some special clothing that identified them, right to the general's tent to inform him. And so once they saw the envoy head to a specific tent, they took out their arrows and shredded the tent to ribbons.
Oh my god. Whoa. That's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, some of these are really great. Like you should read some Chinese history regarding like the exploits of trickster generals because they were real funny guys.
Wow, that's honestly 10 out of 10. I love
Right,
that.
that was a great one.
That's a great one. All right, Eric, another casual question. Pick one.
Wait. Oh yeah. Never mind. I thought we were gonna vote for this, but no, you're good.
No, we don't need to vote for casual.
Thank goodness.
All right.
Thank goodness.
Do you want to do general who had the weirdest habits?
I can do that one, yeah.
Okay.
I had so much trouble with this one.
That was
Really
a weird
did.
one.
It was an odd one, but
You know, I'd like to start just because like mine's gonna be like 2 seconds.
Sure.
Yeah, sure,
Because I'm so sad.
Sure.
I was really challenged a little bit beyond my abilities with this one. All I could find was Domitian, and he was like really barely a general as much as he was an emperor. He did have military service, but he was famously a little bit fucking off the rocker and a little bit of a psychopath.
Yeah.
As Roman Julio Claudians. No, wait, he wasn't Julio Claudian, was he? Anyway, as Roman emperors are wont to be. His hobby was to stab flies and insects with like a sharp stylus or a pin and then pull off their wings while they were still alive.
What the hell is wrong with this man?
I mean, he also impregnated and then force aborted and then murdered his niece. So,
Oh my
Oh
God.
my goodness.
yeah, this guy was not a cool dude.
No, not at all.
Oh my god.
He did revalue the Roman currency, but
Oh,
Dude, Liam, honestly, like your guy went from being like, oh lol, what a wacky man, to holy Jesus, war criminal.
Yeah.
I mean,
real fast.
in hindsight, though, is it really all that surprising?
I mean, not
when you
really, but
when you put two and two together, aren't you just like, I guess that makes sense?
I guess that really does. Yeah, the
Shoot, we could have
psychoanalyzing
predicted
really-
this.
Jeez.
Oh, that's seriously funny. Yeah. So, Eric, you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll let you go.
Okay, so this one, when I had the question in mind, this was literally the only person I could think of, and this is Stonewall Jackson.
Damn it!
You got mine. So
go.
Stonewall Jackson, he was a weirdo. So Eric, since this was clearly yours, feel free to jump in if I miss anything.
Sure. Yeah.
So with Jackson, he had a habit of sucking lemons.
What the fuck?
He did. He would straight up just like have a lemon. He'd suck on that sucker, and he'd be like, "Okay, send your men over there." That's just kind of how he went.
This sounds like some kind of union propaganda.
No, dude, that's literally what he did. This is like all his officers were like, he's kind of a nut. He didn't drink or smoke because he was deeply religious and he feared the vices. He refused whiskey even when he was injured because he's like, again, dude, vices ain't not a thing. He refused to march on a Sunday because that was the Lord's Day. And then he had Sunday school where he taught gospel to the slaves. And then something else that was really kind of odd about him is that he never cried over a soldier's death. Like whenever he had soldiers, he was very close with his men. But then when you see the casualty figures and stuff like that, he would never cry. But there was this one girl who he met when he was just campaigning. It was like in the town that the Confederate Army was based in, and this one girl died from scarlet fever. And when she died, he just wept, and he wept for hours. And one of his men was saying, "Well, why is the general crying? He doesn't cry for us." And one of the soldiers put his arm on his shoulder and said, "He's crying for all of us." So he's kind of he is totally wacky. But his odd habits kind of carried out really all throughout his life. So
I will.
Eric, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, because I will say the sucking lemons one always makes me laugh.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
But dude, I'm gonna say I think you missed his weirdest habit.
Did I really?
Or one of, yeah.
All right, lay it on me.
He was known for constantly keeping his right arm up/elevated. Always.
What?
Yeah,
What?
because he believed that one side of his body was heavier than the other, so he'd raise his right arm to move blood to the lighter side of his body to balance it out.
I've never heard
What?
that.
Yeah, so turns out most people believe, well, modern physicians now suggest his feeling of imbalance may have been the result of a diaphragmatic hernia that he just let go untreated, obviously. But yeah, so he'd walk
What?
around with his right arm up constantly.
Well, aren't we glad the Civil War happened before World War II?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Jesus.
hmm
Well, that's just hilarious. I had no idea
Yeah.
that he did that.
hmm
Wow.
That's when you said Stonewall, I immediately thought it was lemons and that, and
No. It was sucking lemons is still my favorite thing. It's like seeing this general who literally got his nickname from just like standing there as shells are falling around him, and he's just like, nah, man, I can only do that if I've got lemon in me.
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
dude,
man.
this is kind of wild. Wow, was that
Imagine being Robert E. Lee and having, I mean, unless I'm wrong, Civil War history is far beyond my competency, but having literally like your only super impressive general just be a fucking weirdo like that. And you're like, here I'm gonna have like a drink with the generals, and you're like, your favorite one. He's like, no thanks, just a lemon wedge for me. And then he's like constantly raising his hand, and the waiter keeps coming over to him, and he's like, nah, it's just for my balance.
Dude, that's brilliant.
I can only imagine like Jefferson Davis sitting in the tent, like, we are so fucked.
And then he just comes in and goes like, I got my lemon, dude, it's fine. Wow, boys, was that another 2 casual questions?
I think
I guess it was.
Yeah,
It went by in a heartbeat.
We are blazing through these.
yeah, seriously, way faster than last time.
Way faster than last time. Okay, all right. Okay, all right.
Still thinking about the lemons, man. That's
Dude, I'm
fucking
doing the lemon.
hilarious.
Dude, honestly, I could like just see a spoof of.
You know what it
why isn't
reminds
that
me
like-
of? It reminds me of that meme. Like, it might be a real or it might be a fake, like, news thing, where it's like, man has decided to continue to keep his virginity after getting married. Every time he feels urges, he eats a whole raw potato. Like, in order to protect himself from his vices, Stonewall Jackson eats a whole lemon.
Yeah, just does it. Just does it. Wow, that's just intense. Okay, all right. So now comes to a serious question, and if you boys don't mind, I would like to pick the serious question.
Okay.
Okay, so for this next one, let's do the general who best utilizes technology. So who do you think, Eric, best utilizes technology?
So for this one, I'm going to go a little outside of the box on it. And I'm gonna go with Major Gonville Bromhead. Bromhead, maybe.
Who is he?
Okay, so he actually, it was him, and he led with Lieutenant John Chard of the Royal Engineers, siege of Rorke's Drift for the British Empire during the Anglo-Zulu Wars.
Okay, so the Boer Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, obviously at that time, Britain was trying to take over the Zulu Kingdom, which angered the Zulu Kingdom for obvious reasons. They did not want to get taken over.
Naturally.
So the British basically gave them an ultimatum, basically telling them, give up your land or agree to like these absurd, ridiculous demands, like a laundry list of them, that the Zulu kingdom was just like, we're not agreeing to that, we're not giving you our land. So basically the British were like, okay, we'll just attack you then. So the British thought this was going to be a really easy victory, which actually ended up kind of backfiring on them because they didn't really realize just how strong the Zulu warriors were, because the British had firearms, so they thought they had a clear advantage because Zulu warriors only had short spears and shields that were made of oxen hide. But the Zulu were actually able to win a few battles, but they won the first one by a landslide, mainly because the Zulu warriors could run like 30 to 40 miles a day.
Whoa!
Yeah, these guys were... There are some quotes about basically people being like, you're an idiot if you think you have any idea what the Zulu warriors can do. Like, they are gonna be faster. Oh yeah, these guys could run for forever.
Possible?
Yeah, no, I hold on, let me see if I can find the quote real quick.
40 miles a day?
The Zulu really were like a nearly Spartan force in terms of their culture. They were just entirely bred, reared, and fed for nothing but warfare. It was pretty brutal as far as I'm aware, but it was effective.
Right.
And they were drilled constantly.
Exactly. So okay, I can't find the quote. So moving on at this point, but so basically, Zulu warriors were able to win their first battle, shock the British troops. Gonville Bromhead's troop was only of about 152 people, and they were 6 miles away from the original first battle at Rorke's Drift, which it was basically... How do I explain this? It was basically like... just kind of like a station with some supplies for soldiers. If anything, it might have almost been like kind of more of a hospital and a storehouse than an actual like barrack or anything. And the Zulu knew that Bromhead's men were there, and again, only 152 people. And the Zulu warriors were like, okay, we'll go over there. It's only 6 miles. That's like a 2-hour run for us. And they were 3,000 to 4,000 men strong.
Wow.
Bromhead got word of this, and basically, like I said, it was basically just a hospital and a storehouse, so it wasn't going to be easy to defend. So Bromhead, what he decided to do with what he had around him is he created a wall made of sandbags, also known as a mealie bag wall. And he made a wall of sandbags around this Rorke's Drift, and not only that, but he made another one inside of that, and not only that, he made one final small one for like just a few men to try and do whatever they could to survive.
Wow. Yeah.
And so when the Zulu first attacked, they realized the bags were too high, so all they really had for the most part were spears. They had some rifles, but they weren't very skilled at it, so they would just try and stab at them, and Bromhead's men would just aim over and just shoot and kill them. So what the Zulu would do is they'd wait until there were stacks of their dead warrior bodies, and they'd climb over those to get over the wall. And just at this point, Bromhead didn't really have a lot of firepower or anything like that. But just due to the fact that he kept having walls or mealie bag walls, they were able to defend them off. This whole battle took about 10 hours, and again, by the end of it, they were basically out of all ammo, but they were able to, at least get through this. And they kept fighting, and actually he made it through. A couple of his men did as well, and at the end of it, due to this battle, Britain gave out 11 Victoria Crosses, which is the highest and most prestigious award in the British honor system, to soldiers who fought in the battle. So 11 of them in total got these crosses, him being one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because the movie Zulu is based off of that.
Exactly, yep. And yeah, I just thought it was a great use of technology. I wasn't sure exactly where to go with this one. But I just thought, I mean, you're standing there at a storehouse and a hospital, and all you have is sandbags, and you found a way to, kind of fight off Zulu warriors. I'll give him credit for that one.
That's pretty MacGyver-y of him.
Right?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I like that. I thought where you were going with this was a Maxim gun.
Oh,
Because-
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going with it too.
Because that was the most famous, like, I think at the very end when they finally defeated the
Right.
Zulu, like,
Yep.
permanently, it was because of they brought in this overwhelming new technology of the Maxim gun.
Right.
Basically a proto-Gatling gun.
more or less, yeah.
Just mowed them all down.
Right. Yeah, but I liked using the sandbag as the technology because, I mean, the Maximum gun was so powerful. Like, you talk about a
It's
sandbag,
OP.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So that's why I thought best utilization would be for the sandbag part. But
That's a great answer. I like that. Because the
Thanks.
sandbag, what an unsung hero
Yeah,
of
really.
warfare.
seriously,
Like,
saved
portable cover.
yeah, it saved so many
basically.
people, yeah.
Huh.
That's awesome.
Garrett, what you got?
Okay, so mine is for the general that best utilizes technology. I went with Julius Caesar.
Huh. I see where you're going with
Okay.
this.
Yeah. So now
Really,
here's my-
engineering might is, I think,
Hmm.
more fair,
here's the
but go
thing,
for
is-
it.
Is that this is the reason why I choose Caesar? It's because every single time he is in a bind, whether he's at Alesia or he's trying to go over to he's fighting Pompey, or he's fighting in Spain or wherever he is, his default in a bind is to use some new technology to get around it, and to really heavily lean on the engineering prowess of the Roman legions. He's at Alesia. What does he do? He's like, he's trying to take down these walls, but he's got a force coming behind him. So he builds a wall around it of circumvallation. Then he does another one, but he's on the inside of it. So he's literally
Siegeception.
and sieging. Right. He's literally siegeception. Right. Like that is not necessarily an intuitive thing to do, or really a practical thing to do, but he goes, this is what I have to do. When he's at him and Pompey, I can't remember the battle, but it's when they initially meet before their major clash, and they have a giant wall building race to secure fresh water. And so they're building it. Whoever gets to the end first controls the fresh water, and they build it for something like 23 or 25 kilometers. They're just going. When he goes to Britain, what does he do? He says, "Oh, hey, the regular Roman boats we can get a hand on, they suck. Hey, Roman legionaries, build me new boats." Like his default always is to go and rely on technology to solve his problems, as opposed to just charging in and taking things by force, or finding a less efficient way to do so. So really, that's all I have to say about it. That's really why I chose him as someone who best utilizes technology, because I can't think of a general who in almost every situation their default is, I'm going to use some new engineering or new technological advantages. So now we come to a vote, boys.
Wait, I didn't go.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna
you
say,
didn't go?
Liam
Oh, I'm so sorry,
yeah.
Liam. I thought you went. Oh, okay.
That's all good. I was really between two here, and I didn't realize until just now, really, that they're both from the same geographical area.
Okay.
But many thousands of years apart, pretty much as far apart as you can get in history from one another.
Okay.
Literally. So I've got Ashurnasirpal II of the Assyrian Empire.
I was going to say, I've heard that name before.
Yeah, you've probably heard of Ashurbanipal. It's his more famous, I think, successor.
Mm-hmm.
But Ashurnasirpal II, he's kind of a rando to choose specifically, but his are, I think, the first steles that actually have recorded use of siege engines in all of history. So that's like battering rams and siege towers. I believe in or around his reign was kind of the beginning of recording those in art. So although we can't really say for sure that he's the one who originated them.
Well, because I know Alexander the Great used siege towers.
Yeah, but that's like thousands of years later. We're talking Bronze Age.
Oh, I thought the Assyrians were much later.
Yeah, let me Google
'Cause
Ashurnasirpal.
I thought the Assyrians were the Persian Empire like 2.0.
No.
Do I just have do I just have it wrong?
Ashurnasirpal II. We're talking 883 to 859 BC.
Oh, okay, yeah, way before. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're right, I'm wrong.
So, so he was really the first that we can really concretely say used siege engines.
Okay.
And particularly the siege tower and the battering ram, which the Assyrians are assumed to have invented because the first people that depicted them.
Right, that we have archaeological evidence to support them.
And then I have, and you can take your pick for like which one of these you're counting as my actual. I guess Ashurnasirpal actually takes the cake here, because the second guy is extremely controversial, and also I think probably not accurate as being an actual military commander responsible for these uses of technology. But Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi of ISIS fame.
Ooh.
The headman of ISIS up until 2019 when he died.
Got him.
ISIS is remarkably intelligent in the way that they manufacture weapons, because they do rely on buying weapons like rifles and things like that, but they have their own standards for things like rocket launchers that they made themselves by requisitioning steel mills and fittings and pipe factories and things like that. And they turn these factories into munitions plants, and they have their own like calibers for these things, so that their weapons, if seized, can't be like reused by the enemy very easily. And in addition, what I really chose them for is the use what is it? The militarization of commercial drones, because that has been a major like turning point in the evolution of, I guess you could say, terrorist or guerrilla warfare, asymmetric warfare, we'll say, because you can buy those things cheap, and you can actually make them pretty cheap, and it is not that hard to strap a bomb that can be dropped onto one of those commercial drones. And we have a couple examples of like entire airfields being destroyed by a couple of these. Just those little zoomy things that people use to take those cool videos. Right. Just these little zoomy guys. Someone's on an iPhone or something controlling these things, and they can drop bombs and light airfields on fire. These things are apparently terrifying and extremely effective.
A suicide drone is, Liam thinks, is apparently terrifying.
Well, the thing is, they can zoom in. They're not big enough to be detectable on radar, I don't think.
Well,
so
yeah, no, dude, that's terrifying, because
they're teeny tiny. You just hear this, like, imagine you're just like sitting in Mosul or something, and just hear this. You just hear it,
right? And
then, you can't see it. Imagine trying to, I don't know about you, Eric. Garrett, I know you have used firearms in the past recreationally. Imagine trying to hit one of those drones moving around, maneuvering full speed.
Oh yeah,
in the sky.
Forget it. You just, unless it was automated, like an automated turret, that could probably
exactly. Yeah, you can, like, if you hear that buzz, and it's usually soft targets that they're looking for, or like the top of like armored vehicles. Like, I would just run to cover, because
that's what you could do.
Exactly, it's all you can do. And if you're headed into a building made of cheap concrete, you're barely any better off, honestly.
Right.
Yeah,
so though that's a terrifying and I think remarkable innovation that has come just in the last 5 years.
Right.
Well,
as commercial drones have become.
I wouldn't have thought of that, but
no, that's
you're right.
I wasn't expecting that.
That's pretty darn scary.
So call me a cheater by choosing two people, siege engines.
You just hedged your bets, that's all.
I just wasn't really happy with either of them, and I couldn't find one that made me happier. Not happy with Baghdadi because one, he's a controversial choice, and two, I don't really know how much he has to do with what happens on the ground.
Right, because
Um,
there's just a lot we don't know about him.
Right.
Well, exactly. It's actually still obscured by the fog of war. History hasn't yet decided what his role is, really. And siege engines, it's just a big question mark for Ashurnasirpal, whether we can really lay that at his feet.
Right.
So that's all I have.
Awesome. Alrighty, boys. Well, now it is time for voting. So, do you guys want a minute, or do you have an idea of who you're? So just to go over again, so we've got Caesar, we've got I don't remember how to say your guys'
Ashurnasirpal.
Ashurnasirpal, and then Eric. Hit me with a refresher because I don't.
Bromhead or Bromhead. I believe it's Bromhead though.
Bromhead.
Yeah.
So I have my list.
Yeah, I guess I got mine too.
So Eric, you need a second?
I'll let you two go.
Okay.
As I'm thinking, yeah.
I'm putting Caesar, then God, I'm so bad with names. It's Liam's. I cannot.
Ashurnasirpal.
The pronunciation is messing with my head. It's just it's Ashurnasirpal, and then the British border.
Bromhead.
Yeah.
Bromhead. I cannot. I need to write these down. I'm not asking to write these down. Like I have to order in my head.
I semi-concur. I have Julius Caesar first, and then Bromhead, and then my own choice for Ashurnasirpal.
So for me on this one, I put Caesar first. So Caesar seems like it's gonna be the winner. I'll go Ashurnasirpal. I can't pronounce it either.
You got it, actually.
Okay, perfect. And then Bromhead at the end. I think they were all really good though. I thought there was a lot of thought into all three of those. Yeah.
Did that one? All right. So then, who wants to choose the next casual question?
I think I've already chosen one, so.
Eric, you want to choose one?
Did I already choose one?
You
I thought I did the weirdest habits, but I mean, if you want me to, I can.
It doesn't matter to me. It just you know.
Sure. So how about we go with Biggest Ladies Man? Because that one I struggled with horribly.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll honestly, if it's alright, I'll start.
Start it off.
So actually, my answer isn't entirely about being a ladies' man. It's more of just being a person with a lot of swagger.
Oh yeah, all right, fair enough.
Confidence. And that is I don't even know how to say the first name. I think it's Joachim Murat, who was basically like the right-hand man of Napoleon.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, to say it lightly, this man was extremely flamboyant, and I can't really say he's a ladies' man because actually he was married to Caroline Bonaparte, which is the younger sister of Napoleon. But he was known to be a flamboyant dresser and was also given the nickname the Dandy King.
Yes.
And so like you know how back then, or still do, but a lot back then, other generals wore very flashy uniforms when they were out in public. It was both to impress chicks and also like kind of intimidate oppositions that like if they ever saw them out in public type thing. Well, this guy, he wore those flamboyant and flashy uniforms out on the battlefield. That was just who he was because he always wanted to look good. He was also really good at what he did. He was known as one of the first horsemen of Europe, actually, by Napoleon, which I thought was pretty cool. And I don't know, one thing that kind of also made me think he had a lot of swagger. Again, not quite the ladies' man answer, but I don't know. I feel like that confidence and that charisma kind of helps with that. But when he was about to be executed by firing squad, there's a quote that basically said he walked with a firm step to the place of execution, as calm, as unmoved as if he had been going to an ordinary review. He would not accept a chair nor suffer his eyes to be bound. Before his death, he said, "I have braved death too often to fear it." He stood upright, proudly and undauntedly, with his countenance towards the soldiers, and when all was ready, he kissed a cameo on which the head of his wife was engraved, and gave the word, And when he was giving the word, I can't say what he actually said because I don't know how to pronounce it, but what it translates to is, soldiers, do your duty, straight to the heart, but spare the face. Fire. And that's how he went in. And I don't know. I just he like, the guy had confidence. He had swagger, and I'm gonna say he was a ladies' man just based off that. So that's my answer.
Yeah, actually, well, I've got a so if you guys haven't heard of this, there's a great series that they're doing on YouTube. It's Epic History. It's a YouTube channel that does it, and it's called Napoleon's Marshals, and it goes over all 26 of the marshals that were under Napoleon, and it's a fantastic series. If you, I cannot recommend it enough. It's brilliantly done. Like, this is the stuff I wish the History Channel did.
Right.
It's fantastic, and he's one of them. Now I'm like, oh nice. Yeah, dude. Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
Right.
Okay.
I really wish, just as a brief insertion, that we had one for most flamboyant general.
Oh, dude, we can do that. We should do that.
We should do that,
okay.
and because that should be your answer. And of course, you'd be allowed to do double duty.
Yeah,
okay.
But I would absolutely choose Elagabalus. You guys know who Elagabalus was,
Not
right?
a clue.
Oh
No,
man,
the name sounds amazing.
Oh, he was or she was. It's an open historical question.
Ooh.
Not you get. I guess you get to decide how revisionist you want to get. Elagabalus. This is like totally out of left field, but that's why we're here, really.
Right, that's why we're here, dude.
Elagabalus was of, I think, Syrian extraction. So one of the first Eastern emperors of Rome. He was in the later empire. So post Flavian, pre Aurelian, and he dressed up like a woman constantly. He required everyone to call him empress. He was well known for letting any man fuck him in the ass. He was very clear about it. He made everybody revere his chariot driver, who he made it very clear that he was in a sexual relationship with. He flaunted himself all over the capital like this. He required that everybody worship the old sun god Sol Invictus. I think he murdered a bunch of Christians because he hated them. And he was basically, if we're going to talk from a modern perspective, he may have been the first transgender leader of an ancient nation, or in that case it would be she. But it's unclear. It could have all been craziness. It's like, from a modern perspective, we look at this a certain way. The Romans certainly looked at it in a very different way.
Yeah.
And historians, maybe in Gibbon's time, again looked at it a very different way. But I really can't do it justice because I haven't. It's kind of in the periphery of my memory, and I haven't looked into it. But Elagabalus, man, really freaky, weird. I think Elagabalus did a bunch of other bizarre shit. But anyway, very flamboyant.
Well, hey, man.
But not my ladies' man. As long as I'm talking.
Yeah. What say, Liam? What is your ladies' man?
He's the one that I wish I could choose for just about everything. And that is Gaius Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar. So I don't know if you guys knew this. He actually had a nickname, the Bald Adulterer. That was like everybody knew him as the Bald Adulterer because he was well known for sleeping around with everyone. He infamously, perhaps, because it was he was the butt of many jokes. People believed he had had a sexual relationship with the king of Bithynia, I think, for the sake of his own political advancement and maybe for loans. That's not really relevant, and that's because this is, ladies' man, and that's a homosexual relationship. That may or may not have happened. But that was the beginning, and people say he may have overcompensated for that early. This was when he was quite young that he got that nickname, from that early transgression, perhaps, by just fucking every woman he could. So when he returned, I believe from Gaul, his men had a chant, and they would chant this as he returned from Gaul. Men of Rome, watch out for your wives. We're bringing back the bald adulterer. In Gaul, he fucked his way through a fortune which he borrowed here in Rome. He's well known for having sex with Cleopatra, the wives and sisters and daughters of many senators, political allies, political enemies, co-consuls. I think there's a famous account that I didn't write down where a senator was chewing out Julius for something or other on the Senate floor, and Julius had a slave delivered, or a messenger delivered to him a note, which he chuckled at, and I believe the senator said, "Oh, what's that? What's that? What are you reading? What are you chuckling at? This is serious." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, it's a letter. It's a love letter from your wife. Shall I read it?" And then he read it to the Senate. The man was the arch cucker.
Yeah, actually, though.
He was well known for it. So that's who I've got.
That's fantastic. No, I love that. Mine should come as no shock to either of you. Mine is hands down. Oh, but he's not a general.
Commander? Is he commander?
Let's hear it.
Really.
You're stretching it. Just go for it.
Okay, I'm just gonna go for it anyway because I literally changed it because I thought I was like such a better one. So my first one was Alexander Hamilton.
Because he was a guy.
Okay.
And the thing is, I was thinking more of like in the modern vein of how we view a ladies' man, right?
Yes.
But then I got thinking about it, and I'm like, Alexander Hamilton doesn't hold a candle to Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin was like this guy. I can't even begin to. I don't even know where to start with this guy, Ben Franklin, because I was thinking about it. I was like, he was he did, and George Washington actually Martha Washington named his feral tomcat after Alexander Hamilton because Hamilton was literally he would jump anything that moved. But Ben Franklin though, this guy slept with anything that even remotely interested in him, and to the extent that but this is to the level he went. Okay, so when he was in France, right, just to get support for the American Revolution. Okay,
can we also just mention how old was he at this point? Because he was an old dude.
He was in his 60s.
He was in his 60s. All right, that should color the entire story. Go on.
Yeah. So keep this in mind now. He's in his 60s. Okay, he's whining and dining with the high society of France, and his whole diplomatic strategy was that the French was effectively lean into what the French want him to be, and then he will be that. So he would wear a rustic hunter's fur cap. He got the whole raccoon tail and everything. Not because he was actually a hunter or anything, but because he's I should play the part of a rustic American. That's what these French want to see. So he does that. And then also is that as a rustic frontiersman, he's like, I'm going to pit the moves on everybody. So again, you have to also, the thing is, he has a wife at this point, guys. 37 years he has this wife. And he goes and he starts hey there, French aristocrat lady who is 20 years my junior. I may be overweight and I can't see very well, but I'd like to have sex with you. And they're like, oh, mon ami, of course. And then they do. And it got to the extent that one of the high French society women, he proposed to her. Dude. And she's like, oh, well, we can't do that, Monsieur Franklin. We cannot do that. And he's like, but come on. You know?
See, I'm married in a country, but that country technically hasn't been recognized yet.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. Right? So that's the thing. It's like, yeah, you've got Hamilton who, his career crashed and burned because of the Reynolds pamphlet. But Ben Franklin, he is the ladies' man. And yes, I understand he never commanded any troops. He's not a general. But I could not put him there. It's just too in my head.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so there is ladies' man, hands down. All right, so next casual. Let's do.
We've only got one left, right? What do we have left?
We've only got one left. Oh
Okay.
yeah, we do. General with the biggest poker face. So, who wants to kick this one off?
I'll do it.
You'll do it? Okay, go for it, Liam.
Okay, so there's this great guy named Zhuge Liang. So in the War of the Three Kingdoms, he commanded the Shu against the Wei. I think there are a couple stories about him, but this is the one I'm going to talk about. Oh wait, yeah, okay. I remember the other one. So I can talk about that one afterwards. That's not the one I have written down. So. So he had sent his army, the majority of his army, to out of his headquarters town to go fight on other fronts when the Wei came knocking with a full army ready to hit the town. So he was well known at this point for being an extremely cunning trickster. But he was just absolutely caught off guard. There was nothing he could do. So he just told all of his men to take down all the banners and retreat entirely out of the city.
Okay.
Then he, alone, climbed atop the walls and began playing his lute. And his counterpart for the Wei, Sima Yi, recognized him and was like, "This is obviously a trap," and retreated, and they never attacked the city. He just entirely poker face bluffed at them.
Whoa!
And made it seem like he was going for it. So play number 2, which I think is pretty cool because it transcends his death.
Okay.
So he became very sick at a certain point. And I forget if he was defending a town or if he was encamped. But he was very, very sick, and it was well known he was going to die. And this made its way to his counterpart in that the battles to follow. And that counterpart got wind of his death actually when he actually did die. But before his death, he ordered his men, or his second in command, his successor, if you're being pursued, just turn around and start attacking after my death. And so he died, and hearing of his death, the enemy they began to press their advantage and pushed in for the retreating army, because the army was set to retreat after his death before getting a new, a properly appointed new commander. And so they pressed their advantage, they pursued the retreating army, and true to his word, the successor general turned around, he about faced his army, and they started attacking. And immediately, once again relying on that reputation as a trickster, the opposing army said, "Okay, this is another trap, we're out." And they zoomed, and they retreated. And so his army made it out safely, once again.
Wow.
He double bluffed it. He bluffed for his life, and he bluffed through his death.
Wow. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. I wish I could be that good at poker, man. All you gotta do is look at me and you know if I've got a good hand or not.
That is true.
It's pretty bad. So Eric, if you don't mind, I think I'll go.
Please, go for it.
So the way I interpreted this is not so much that this general is bluffing, but rather as he does bluff more, kind of. So this is the story of Jean Parisot de la Valette. I think it says. He was the 49th Grand Master of the Knights Hospitaller. And the Knights Hospitaller, which was formed around the same time as the Knights Templar, but the thing is that they were so the Templars had a hit order made after them in the center of the Middle Ages because they had too much money and they were too powerful. But the Knights Hospitaller weren't. They were not powerful at all, so they just kind of were just left alone. And the Pope actually gave them the island of Malta. That was their thing. That's where they were based. And I believe the Knights Hospitaller are actually still in operation today, fun fact. But the Knights Hospitaller, like, woefully inadequate. They didn't modernize as a military force. I mean, think of it this way. In the age where, in gunpowder, where, when the English Civil War was happening, like the, 1600s, these guys were still in full plate mail and had swords. That's the situation you had. And so the Ottomans decide that they're going to take over Malta because it's strategic, and so they start fighting over Malta. It goes very poorly for the Knights Hospitaller, as you'd expect, and the Knights Hospitaller only had these handful of knights in this last bastion of on the island, and the Ottomans decide that they're going to have and intimidate the Knights Hospitaller, and they crucify their the prisoners that the Ottomans have, and they put them on the river, and they put them downriver. So you literally see these people screaming as they're on the cross, and to retaliate, the Knights Hospitaller are like, you know what? I'll do you one better. They cut off the heads of the Ottoman prisoners they have. They stuff their heads into cannons, shoot the heads at the Ottomans, and say, come and get us. Come and get us. We can, and effectively, he even said, they're like, we've got so many soldiers here, you'll never take it. At the time, they had 200 against a full army of Ottomans. The Ottomans storm them up, and the guys are swinging and fighting them back, and they actually hold it. They actually win the Siege of Malta. This guy, by the way, is 70 when he did this. So this 70-year-old Grand Master of an outdated order stands up to the Ottomans and says, "Come and get us. We can beat you."
Wow, a Grand Master. I can't believe he learned all that playing chess.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. I love a good story of two opposing armies like out war criming each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, we're gonna crucify you. Yeah, you're doomed. Man, I'm gonna shoot your prisoner's head back and put him in cannons, shoot him at you. What you gonna do? It's great. I think that's so incredible. But yeah,
the only thing I could think of is more BM. Were the I believe Turkish plague catapults.
Yes, yeah, that is maximum BM. We can't take Constantinople, so we're gonna throw these guys seem like they're coughing a lot. We're gonna just launch them over in catapults. Super funny. Okay, Eric, what's yours?
Honestly, after hearing the two of you, I almost feel like I don't want to go. I can. Holy cow. Okay, so I picked kind of a weird one, I guess, but I picked actually William Wallace.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the First War of Scottish Independence. Where's the? Basically, he helped start an uprising, obviously, against British rule, and really the only big one I had for it was that the Battle of Stirling Bridge, where they were vastly outnumbered against the English army. I think it was. I don't even have the amounts, but yeah, basically he was up against the wall. He found a way to win due to being vastly outnumbered, and now I feel like an idiot compared to the two of you.
No, Eric, it's just so funny because with every word you say, I just feel you backpedaling more and more and more.
Yeah, it's.
No, dude, you're good. Don't worry about it.
Honestly, I'm just gonna leave this one as I'm gonna take an L on on one of our just casual questions. I'm just taking the L on this because hearing your two too. I'm just like, where did you guys find these people?
I legitimately, it was a YouTube video. It was just like the craziest last stands in history. I'm like, you have me intrigued. Go ahead. And I'm like, this man put heads in cannons.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, it was also
I did some Googling about Chinese history just to like inform myself of something other than what I know.
Right.
Okay. See, that makes sense. I did not think of looking up Chinese history.
Right, there you go.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just taking the L on this one. I apologize.
No, don't apologize, man. No, honestly, like Liam and I found two wacky, insane examples that really we had no business finding.
We all got to take the L sometimes.
Yeah, but we all got to take the L sometimes.
Right. Okay.
But speaking of taking the L, now, boys, it's time for our last serious question of the podcast. So, for those of you at home, thank you so much for listening. This is going to be our last question, so we'll do the outro after this. But yeah, hope you enjoy this last little question here. So, Liam, I don't think you've gotten to pick a serious question yet. So, what serious question do you want to tackle? We've got 3 left.
I've had 2 that I actually wrote down, like something kind of extensive for. I have Under Fire and Most Badass. Wait, sorry. Oh, shit.
Wait.
Was Most Badass an actual question, or is that a...
No,
we moved
casual.
that one. We moved that one to a casual question.
That's a casual question.
Also, there's a lot of serious ones left, aren't there?
Well, yeah. We've got Best General Under Fire, Best Tactician, Most Cruel General, and then we have the Best General of all time left.
And General with the biggest cultural impact.
That we moved that one too to casual questions.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Yeah,
my bad.
that one was moved because I think Liam was like, "That's kind of vague," and I was like, "All right,
fair enough."
Fair. So yeah, that one.
Okay.
Moved.
So then, in that case, I'm left with like what I have for like a serious question is definitely Best General Under Fire.
Okay. Then you go for it, man.
For that, I've got Richard the Lionheart at the Battle of Arsuf.
Great choice. Dude, he's already. I haven't even gone. He's already got my vote.
Yep.
You guys probably know more about the battle because I just read about this today as I was looking for someone good for this. It was one of my blanks on my sheet up until today, and so I've just read about this. But so apparently he was fighting Saladin, and so he backed himself up against a river, and basically encamped, set up a defensive perimeter. He was like outnumbered, and they had a much better mounted ranged units that were just like pummeling them. So they created this defensive perimeter back to a river and then just waited. He was like, let's just wait, and he's gonna have to give up his advantage. And he didn't even have to wait very long. Just like 2 hours later, Saladin took his mounted range units off their mounts and just moved them closer so they could actually kind of besiege. And Richard just took his heavy cavalry, charged through them, mowed them all down, and won.
Wow. I don't... Do you know specifically which battle that was?
It's the Battle of Arsuf.
Huh. That's one I'm honestly not super familiar with. It must have been a smaller engagement. But he had a lot of instances like that. So there's a... Saladin and Richard, they had a very interesting relationship in that they actually had great respect for each other. There's I believe it's either Tyre or Acre. I believe it was Tyre that Saladin put under siege, and Richard came to relieve the forces there. And so Richard he came in, he charged in, he hacked and slashed and all these things, and he had his horse shot out from under him because he was so like hands-on and fighting on the front line. Saladin was so impressed that he sent him a fresh horse, saying that a king deserves to be on a horse. And like it's like that's the kind of respect they had for each other. And like when Saladin was like, it was effectively like in Richard, like there was a lot of people being like, oh, we need to go take on Jerusalem and execute all the Muslims, and Richard just kind of looked at them all and was just like, like Saladin wouldn't do that, I won't do that to him. Like he wouldn't do that to us, I won't do that to him, kind of thing.
It would be another great casual question. Greatest military bromance.
Oh, okay, dude. That's next podcast. We're making it happen. Yeah, okay. I'm literally writing that down right now. best.
But sorry, yeah, you guys like please share your the choices and or more stuff you have about Richard the Lionheart, because I honestly don't know much about him.
That's my big Richard the Lionheart thing. I mean, he was actually kind of a terrible king for England, only because he didn't spend any of his time there. I mean, he most famously tried to sell the city of London to raise money for his crusade. But there was
awesome,
right? But there was no buyer. No one could afford to buy the city of London. But he did try to sell it, and so he but he spent the majority of his reign either in the Holy Land or in France, where he died.
Right.
Doing all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Eric, I don't know if you've got anything you want to add to that.
No, I think you both kind of nailed it on the head on that one, but yeah, that's definitely a great answer. God damn it.
Yeah, no, Eric, Liam, that's a great answer.
I'm
Eric,
happy to hear it.
What's up, Garrett?
Well, I said what you got for best general under fire.
All right, so actually, after our discussion from the last podcast, I feel like Liam might disagree with what I'm going to say here, but I'll try and prove my point, and I'm going to go George Washington on this one.
You guys are going to agree on this.
I just want you to know, Eric, I also picked George Washington.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because I know, Liam, as you said in the other one, he was basically almost a do nothing general, almost a do nothing commander. I'm still kind of upset with the whole mascot slash fiasco.
We don't have to hash it out, man.
No, we're getting past that, but I mean, and also as lame as this is about to sound, quoting Hamilton, the whole outgunned, outmanned, all of that, it really was extremely true. I mean, George Washington basically had men who definitely were not ready to fight and said, hey, you're gonna fight. And that was basically his entire army was, just people who lived in the States who wanted to, become their own country, and there was not a lot of training, there was not a lot of time, and they got pushed back a lot. One of the big ones as well was the whole, him and his men at Valley Forge, they were there for months, from December of 77 to March of 78, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I always think it's 76, but he wasn't there in 76.
Right, yeah, but they had basically no supplies, no food, no clothes. They fought off disease and hunger the whole time. It's just kind of a nightmare. And as bad as it sounds, most of that time was spent with Washington being there with his men, pleading, sending letters to the French saying, hey, we need your support, we need your help. And thankfully at the end, they were able to get that help. And with that, they were able to defeat Cornwallis at Yorktown, helping basically win the war at that point. But I know that doesn't sound a lot of him doing much, but
I
would like to hear how that's under fire.
Yeah,
so how you interpreted that.
I can answer that as soon as you're done, Eric.
Garrett, if you want to, go for it. Since we have the same one,
you're kind of acting as United Front here, so I'm willing to hear it.
Yeah.
So George Washington has this. Whenever he would fight and be on the front line, he was that on the front line. People are said that he had this air of invincibility. He put himself unnecessarily in harm's way. Now there is a debate between whether he did this because he genuinely didn't think he was going to get shot, or because he knew the British and knew how the British fought. So the way that the British fought was war was a dance to the British. There is a way things are, and there are ways that things aren't. And one of the big things was that officers were never targeted. That was a big deal for the whole idea of the nobility of warfare. This is a very European idea. You see, because it came out of chivalry, is where it originated, and as the modern era creeped in, it kind of evolved to, even though yes, I could shoot you from a distance, it's seen as a really cheap shot and dishonorable to target officers. So the question then becomes, did Washington, knowing how the British fought, put himself on the front lines? Or did he do so because he genuinely was just like, I feel invincible, I'm going to do this? I think it actually is that he felt invincible because he put himself in situations where even if this officer's code is upheld, the way the British like to fight, there was either no way that they would know that he was there, or he would just say screw it, and I'm gonna walk in front of and effectively walk in front of a wall of musketmen who probably wouldn't care, and B,
you could barely aim those things anyway.
Well, right, you could barely aim those things anyway. So you're just going to put yourself effectively in front of a shotgun is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Really, that's how that worked. So the first instance is that when, actually at the siege of Yorktown, he took the French advice and built parapets, which are parallel lines of trenches that lead closer and closer and closer to the besieged settlement, so that you can effectively storm the bastion. And when they were building the first parapet, the British guns were shooting cannons and lobbing that at the Americans. And the only time to really build these parapets was at night, because if you didn't do it at night, you could do it during the day. And believe it or not, people can see you during the day, and that's a bad time to have any kind of protection. So the soldiers, even though they had the cover of darkness, they refused to dig the parallel, but Washington went up and did it himself. He said, we're finishing this right now. I'm going to lead, and I'm going to do this. Another instance is at Monmouth Courthouse, where he famously reprimands Charles Lee. He takes hold of the men, and Lee had effectively sold out the Americans, and promised that he would retreat when the British advanced. And Washington reprimanded him, said, get the hell out of my army, and he effectively did. And Washington led the men from the front, and he won a close-fought victory there. And that's just kind of what he did. Last one is actually where the British sense of honor actually saved Washington. This is just a fun little factoid. There was a renowned English marksman. I don't remember his name, but it was in the very early stages of the war. This is like 1775 or 6, and he was literally perched in a tree. This guy had literally invented his own rifle. That he was deadly accurate with it, and he apparently went to take aim at an American officer, but he decides to pass up the shot. He goes, that's not an honorable thing to do. But its records have corroborated, and judging by by his description of what the officer was wearing, people have come to the reasonable assumption that the person at the end of his gun was George Washington.
Oh, wow.
That reminds me very much of the famed, I think it was a British marksman, once again, who nearly shot Hitler during World War One.
Right, exactly.
And who passed up the shot once again.
Passed up the shot. So it's one of those things where it's like, wow, if he had taken that shot, what would history look like?
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So
Incredible.
so that's really where I fall on it. But that's really kind of the answer, the prompt to you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm still. I mean, I think it's an undeniable show of courage and valor, but I don't know if I'd prefer that valor as inspiring as it might be, because men have to put their lives on the line, and seeing someone lead by example is inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd prefer that as much to somebody who gave instructions that made me feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just because I'm not someone of warrior-like sensibilities.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody here is of warrior-like sensibilities. I mean, we're literally on a super nerdy podcast where we talk about, history channels and being like, oh, wow, they're so cool, So I think you're in good company there.
Yeah.
But okay, it's time to vote. So, Liam, can you just what was the name of your guy again?
Richard the Lionheart.
Oh yeah, that's right. I literally was oozing about it. Honestly, I'm gonna be real. I would put Richard the Lionheart over Washington.
I'm going to agree.
Yeah,
I think we have a unanimous decision then.
Yeah,
Yep.
because the thing is that if you really think about how much more intense medieval combat
Yes.
is to postmodern or modern era war, dude. I mean, it's brutal. You ever try to really think about I have a club, I have a mace, I'm gonna beat the crap out of this guy, Like, really think about that for a second. You know, that's kind of a lot versus like, oh, I just gonna pull out and shoot the guy.
There's something very different between like shooting somebody's arm off from a distance of 45 meters, which is decently close. You get to see a bunch of carnage, and it's terrible. But there's a big difference between that and like feeling the ribs slide against your weapon as you're pulling it out of someone's chest.
Mm-hmm.
Like feeling the ribs grind against your steel. Like that's different.
Yeah, it is. It does. It hits something different.
Right.
You know.
That medieval combat just hits different.
Yeah, man, they don't do it like they used to. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Hang on. I actually am taking the winners in my notes. So it's winner Richard Lionheart. Yeah, so that is the podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and for sticking with us. We will come at you with another one, hopefully sometime soon. Depends on how quick I am editing.
What are the questions we're gonna answer in the last
forward?
podcast?
So in the last podcast, we're probably gonna, seeing as how we actually did pretty well on this one, time-wise. Probably because we didn't have like such an incendiary casual question session, because we do those were spicy. But the remaining 3 serious questions we have are the most cruel general, the best tactician, and then the best general of all time. Bum, 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 bum. So that's what you guys
for casuals.
Well, for casuals, we got to make more. We've got 2 more casuals. We've got the most badass general, and then the general that had the biggest cultural impact.
Oh shoot! That's right.
And now the bromance one.
And now the bromance one. So definitely, if you're looking for the bromance one, that's gonna happen for sure.
I guess so. We need like 3 more, right?
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, we need 3 more. So if we're gonna keep the 2.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, folks. So we're gonna sign off. This has been the Broken Tablets podcast. Liam and Eric, do you have any final words?
I want to say, I kind of want to reiterate what you were saying earlier at the very beginning of the podcast. Thank you to everyone who's, already listened and liked and subscribed and commented. We greatly appreciate it. That meant a lot, especially, I think it was like 50 something views in the first 2 days. That's, for a small podcast where we're just nerding out over generals so far, that's pretty awesome. So I'd say that was really great.
Yeah. I do. I appreciate it. Yeah, Liam, any words for folks?
I would say I don't owe you anything.
Yeah, all right. Hard commit. I like it. All right, folks. That's great. All right, I'm gonna cut him off before he says anything else.
That's very smart.
Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next one, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.